Minion in! I did what was going to be a 4-part series to talk about the current state of Bless Unleashed, examine its progress and problems, and make suggestions to fix core issues or make improvements. And then I realized I have more things to say. Go figure. So here's part 5 of my 4-part series. Hey, if Douglas Adams can do it. Let's talk about open world PvP.
Come for the game, stay for the commentary.
Ain't nothing but a seat then, baby.
Let me start by telling you a story that was one of the first things I learned about Bless Unleashed, and it was what convinced me to invest as much time, energy, and hope in it as I have. Because to be honest, I played a fair number of MMOs, but games with open world PvP you can't opt out of have always gotten a hard pass from me. Here's what sold me on it. When Bless Unleashed was first conceived, it was a PvE game. Period. Despite some of the uneducated hate I somehow attracted for repeating the story, the truth is, open world PvP was not part of the game's original design. Of course, the game has always had PvP mechanics. You can't make an MMORPG without them. Battlegrounds and arenas were always part of the plan, but Bless Unleashed was not originally meant to have PvP in the open world. During the final design stages of the game, devs were sitting around trying to figure out a way to give players a feeling of danger and anxiety in high-level areas. The obvious solution to me may have been, don't do level syncing, do gear score syncing. That way no one is breezing through Ostium on a comfortable gear score cushion. I'd say let's put a pin in that, but I already covered that in part 4 of this series, so let's be done with me interjecting my opinions. Yeah, right. The solution that devs went with was to make higher level areas open world PvP. And it worked. Once you hit Tristeza, you are constantly on guard, especially when you see other people. This design process is why PvP can feel a little unnatural sometimes. It wasn't part of the original design, so to PvE enthusiasts, the world feels more or less safe. And suddenly when you're being PK'd, it somehow feels broken. When the game was first released, open world PvP enthusiasts were pissed because the system felt incomplete. I've seen more than one person storm out, shouting something about defending your rotation. And honestly, seeing toxic people rage out was what made me fall in love with Bless Unleashed, after having just left Sea of Thieves because the game was awesome, but the community was toxic. Seeing the game in which the devs actually have PvEers backs was just what I needed. Open world PvP has found some balance since then. It was a new thing. It needed some time to develop, and it's still growing. I did a whole video on why this last-minute implementation has caused some conflict between the two types of players, and talked about how the whole thing could be solved neatly, and you can click on this card to see that. The open world of Bless Unleashed was very clearly designed for cooperative gameplay. It doesn't take a genius to see that PvE was the primary design focus here. It's full of regional quests, invasions and crusades, and field bosses that give players a joint objective. If open world PvP had been a concept from the start, the open world would be filled with contested objectives you have to fight other players over. No brainer. When asked directly why the game didn't support groups or guilds claiming areas and defending them against other players, which is a common feature for open world PvP games, devs responded with a very clear, "That sounds like you're trying to prevent other players from accessing content." Bless Unleashed will never support that style of play. That is the sentence that sold me on Bless Unleashed before launch. I know what you're thinking. Rare Tames contradicts that statement. Hang on to that thought. Right now, all we really have for open world PvP is corrupted nodes. Rare species tames were an accidental side effect, and devs are talking about ways to make those available to everyone without having to PvP for them. Open world PvP in theory and practice are two different things. In theory, it promotes competitive interaction and gameplay, but that requires maturity on the part of its participants. In practice, it does those things, but it also opens the door for griefing and other toxic interactions. Since Bless Unleashed designers were primarily PvE enthusiasts, devs have been combating toxic PvPers since launch. And to be clear, by that I don't mean people who enjoy PvP. I mean people who enjoy PvP and are also toxic. Devs wanted open world PKs to be possible to make people nervous about being in high level areas. What they didn't actually want is for us to go around PKing each other for no reason. Those are extremely conflicting design ideas. They're polar opposites. I don't know why they thought this was going to work out. So now that they've realized what they've created, they're now trying new things and tweaking it to find the balance that makes everybody happy. It's like making a game where you add a jump feature just so players don't feel so stuck to the ground. And then you end up having to add a bunch of other restrictions because you didn't expect players would actually start jumping over stuff. You put the feature in, people are going to use it. Devs introduced the notoriety system to deter unwarranted PKs. Then they implemented a mechanic that prevents you attacking people more than 5 levels higher or lower than you. Every time devs added something new to deter toxic behavior, toxics rallied on social media with calls to beat the devs and take back the game. When they made Bone Dragon a PvP-free zone, there were people who were really upset with that, and they were gathering in Facebook groups with this big plan to build like a human fence and section off that area to prevent players from accessing Bone Dragon. It was sad and ridiculous, but it shows the determination that devs are up against. The 5-level rule backfired, and devs decided to remove it again. The same level of pushback was felt when devs made soul pyres and telepost safe zones. Now PKers use those to run to when someone they tried to kill puts up too much of a fight. I believe that if you have notoriety, soul pyres and teleposts should not protect you. Either that or place an NPC guard at every soul pyre and telepost that is hostile toward notorious players. Because if you think you're tough enough to start a fight, then you better be tough enough to finish it. They introduced the honor system in an attempt to create a self-policing system. But in the end, honor just meant free mounts for everyone. Click this card. It's a constant back and forth, not only resulting from the fact that open world PvP was an afterthought that was tagged on to a game that was essentially already finished. And balance is still a thing in the works. We'll get there, but let's try to get there fast, because every time a PvE player gets PK'd, you potentially lose someone. And every time a PvP player is penalized just for attacking someone else in what is supposed to be an open world PvP game, you also potentially lose someone. Bless Unleashed devs are obviously not the kill each other to your heart's content type. When making a PvP game, balancing the healthy and the toxic is a real challenge. It's clear that these devs want you to enjoy your PvP experience without ruining the enjoyment of people who aren't in it for the PvP. And that's a tough position to take. It's a tightrope act, and it may be an uphill battle, but they're fighting it. It's going to take more than just what the devs want. We are going to have to be mature about it. So for the PvPers, maybe try to be a little less aggressive towards other people and consider you may be ruining someone else's fun. And for the PvEers, stop being butthurt so much. You do get a title for killing 1,000 people in the open world. Somebody's gotta die. And if one of them was you, shake it off. You know what makes a griefer or a bully happy? When you complain about them on social media. Rise above. Goose Fraba. As much as a PvP player griefing or bullying is toxic, writing a butthurt post about someone who killed you in an open world PvP game, or even worse, whispering their killer to insult them, is every bit as toxic. Also, he didn't have time for your pity party. 999 more people aren't just gonna kill themselves. The point is, both types of players have their shitheads. Just don't be one of them. Respect each other's style of play. That's the only way this is going to work. Bless Unleashed has great PvP mechanics, and if that is your thing, the game delivers. But as such a significant portion of the player base emphatically feels that open world PvP is out of place here, I thought that this story needed to be heard again, in the very least to help see where some of the growing pains are coming from, and maybe encourage patience and understanding as the game continues to grow towards real balance. I'm always happy to talk about this and other games, so feel free to check the video description for my socials and other ways you can connect with me. Let me finish this series for good with a summary. The state of the game is this. Bless Unleashed was a preemie, and it's slow to grow, but it's growing. From day one, it has always had the potential to be one of the greats. It's been almost a year, and having potential will only get you so far. Eventually, you have to reach that potential, or it means nothing. And while the role of the devs is to make fixes and add content, the role of us players is to give the game room to grow and the time to fill its britches. We are a community. You are a community. You are Bless Unleashed. Minion out.